Now we're recording.
All right, we are live. I am here with Nathan Osmond. This is a first, actually. It's a Ray Powers
Yeah,
Hour video portion of my hourly show.
we're trying this out.
Yeah.
And you look terrific.
Well, thank you. I've been told I have a face for radio, but, I'll let the kids be the judge of that. Before we get started, I just have to informally once again let everybody know that this Ray Powers Hour is being proudly brought to you by the Garden of Edie, making your life more beautiful, one home treasure at a time, or maybe a handful. Hit them up at thegardenofedi@gmail.com, thegardenofedi@gmail.com. Put Powers in your promo code. In the subject field, it'll serve as your promo code. You'll get a free gift with your first paid order. Can't beat that, Nathan.
You can't beat that. Thank you, Garden of Edie.
Well, let me do this the proper way, because normally when I have you come in, you're walking in this pomp and circumstance, and I would say, this is the Ray Powers Hour. Joining me on the line and on video, a veteran performer, composer, producer, actor, motivational speaker. Good Lord, man.
Take a breath.
Among his myriad of accomplishments, he's earned 4 consecutive number 1 singles on the country music charts, nominated for a basket full of prestigious awards, and he makes time to help others. He makes it a priority. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, officially, Mr. Nathan Osmond. How you doing?
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Mr. Powers. It's so good to be here with you. I can't believe we're hanging out, doing the whole Zoom thing.
I know.
This COVID-19's changed our world, hasn't it? I didn't even know what the word Zoom meant 12 months ago. Let alone having it on my computer. But now I use it, when I do my podcast too. I just love it because it's making the world a lot smaller.
Yeah, true.
I'm here in Utah, and you're located where?
Right outside New York City, the Meadowlands in New Jersey.
Love it. I love the Empire State, man. Your slogan is Excelsior, which means onward, upward.
Yes, sir.
I love that. You know how I know that?
How do you
I
know?
got invited to come out and speak to the largest board of realtors in the nation, LIBOR, Long Island Board of Realtors.
Wow.
I stayed there in Queens at my friend's apartment, and man, I tell you, it's just so much fun. I love the New York way of life, man. It's incredible.
A little fast-paced, right? I was born in Queens, actually.
Were you?
I was.
I love that, man. Is that you got Queens, you got Suffolk County, Nassau County, all those places. Great people out there. Great food too. I mean, Queens has got some hidden gems.
Yeah, the pizza is unbeatable in New York City. I mean,
There is.
when in Rome.
Absolutely.
Now, I know it's a foregone conclusion. People hear your name, and immediately, you come from a super famous family, and you say Osmond, they go, wait, that Osmond? Like Osmond?
Yeah. It's like Donnie and Marie.
Yeah.
It's like one bad apple. Absolutely. I come from that family.
Yeah.
There's like a million of us. We make up half the state of Utah. But I'm one of the second generation, and the number one question I'm asked as an Osmond is, who's your daddy, right? So let me just get it out of the way. Alan Osmond, who is the oldest of the performing brothers. They had 2 older brothers, Verl and Tom. They were both born deaf, and so they didn't do a lot of singing.
Wow.
But my father was the oldest that could hear, so he was the leader of the group, and so he was the one always introducing the brothers and kind of being the MC throughout the shows. He was the tallest one on stage usually, and so that's the family I come through. So my father's Alan Osmond,
Right.
and my brothers and I used to tour around as a boy band, as the Osmond Boys or Osmond second generation.
Right.
Bob Hope, the one that discovered our group back in the day and gave us our first shot, but I did all that. But then I went country, and it's just been a fun ride ever since then. And I never knew that I'd be singing country music. I guess it was those years we spent in Branson, the Osmond Family Theater, and I was introduced to some really cool artists, and that's where I discovered Garth Brooks and Vince Gill and Colin Ray and all the Sawyer Browns, and the 90s country is what got to me. And so I went after it, went out to Nashville and had the guys from Lone Star produce me. Dean Sams, the founding member of that group, brought me in. We recorded some songs there. Went down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama area, then Florence, Alabama.
The way to do it.
My good friend Gary Baker, who wrote the song "I Swear I'm Already There," he wrote some amazing hits. He produced the rest of my album, and the rest is history. We're just going to keep doing it till we get it right.
Wow, that's amazing.
Having fun with it, though.
That's on my bucket list to record at Muscle Shoals. I mean, I've recorded at some great studios in New York, but I mean, this is like landmarks, just
That's
history.
where the Osmonds recorded their very first #1 hit single was in Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
That's where One Bad Apple was recorded. The legendary producer Rick Hall brought him in there to Fame Studios. And let me tell you, they had just come from the Andy Williams Show's days. They're trying to make it as a pop group, and they were singing like a bunch of Utah boys. But, I tell you, Rick Hall, he brought my Uncle Merrill into the other room. He says, Merrill, come here. He says, you ever been in love? No, sir. He goes, good. Love stinks. It's like, what? It's like trying to just, come on. I need you to get some grit in your voice. I need you to, I want you to sing like somebody just punched you in the gut, hard and fast. Like what? Hard and fast. And so my Uncle Merrill got that sound, man. He had blood coming out of his throat, he told me. I can tell you've been hurt by that look on your face, girl. But, man, it came out, one bad apple, don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. And then Donnie, give it one more try. And people thought it was Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. And so, it just went straight to #1. It had that bubblegum pop sound, and they didn't sound like the Osmonds.
Right. And
that was awesome. Just the experience my father had there at Muscle Shoals. He said, man, it was so great getting to work with Rick. And, man, what a gentleman. We miss him. His son is continuing on, though. So when you go down there, make sure you check out Fame Studios, but then go over to Noise Block Studios. That's where I recorded my album. It's right across the river in Florence, Alabama. It's basically the same town just about, but Gary Baker's got a great place down there, so you'll love it.
That's amazing. So I'm a couple years older than you, and like every other kid, every other magazine, Dynamite, Teen Beat, Tiger Beat, you name it. Your uncle and aunt were on every single cover. I remember the dolls, the lunch boxes. It was either
couldn't get away from them.
Donnie Marie, Kiss, or the Bee Gees. That just basically dominated the late 70s.
David Cassidy. Yeah. That was really who you saw. You could not get away from them. They had lunch boxes. They had all sorts of things, purple socks, Barbie dolls. It was amazing. They even had a cartoon series. My dad was a cartoon character. How crazy is that?
That is
but
surreal.
It's fun. I miss the good old days. We toured with New Kids on the Block, my brothers and I, back in the 90s, and they had a little cartoon series spinoff. And it was so cool, though, because the first time I got to meet New Kids on the Block, we were in Philadelphia, and we went back, we met Maurice Starr, and Maurice said to my father, I just want to let you know that we patterned this group right here after the Osmonds. And I like, what? And they even stopped the show in the middle of the show and had my father stand up and point out, one of the inspirations that created groups like New Kids on the Block, because they were the original boy band.
Yeah.
And just really fun history to think about. They sold over 100 million records. And and they were known as one of the loudest rock bands of the 70s in Europe. See, America doesn't know about that.
Right.
See, they want to remember One Bad Apple, but man, Crazy Horses kicked into gear, and they were rock stars. They called it Osmond Mania in England because they were like the Beatles over there. Like the Beatles were here.
Yeah.
That's how the Osmonds were treated over there. It's crazy. In fact, let me tell you this, Ray. One time they flew into Heathrow Airport, and there were so many girls there. This is obviously pre-9/11, right? So anybody could come to the gates, and all these screaming girls were waiting there. Their first time coming over to England. They didn't know what to expect, but they had hit records on the radio. And so they get there, and just like you saw when the Beatles stepped off it, there were so many girls that one of the balconies gave way.
Oh, my God.
Collapsed, and girls fell off, and one lost an eye, one lost a kidney, and it was thank goodness nobody died. But it was frightening. They shut down Heathrow Airport.
Holy cow.
They had Hell's Angels breaking into their concerts trying to shut them down. I mean, they were rock stars.
That's insane. So now,
isn't that crazy?
Growing up, I mean, you're born into this. Do you realize that you're a family of celebrities growing up, or is it just all relative?
It's all relative.
Literally.
They're all related.
But it's like you're on like a glacier going like 1,000,000 miles an hour through space, and it's 1,000,000 miles wide, so you don't really feel it as it's happening.
Yeah. I guess that's a great way to compare it, because I didn't know anything different. My wife said, that's not normal. You should write a book called That's Not Normal, because I didn't have a very normal childhood, even though my parents wanted me to have as much of a normalcy as I could, because they didn't.
Yeah.
At the age of 12, my father, who was the oldest of the group, was he he was a regular on the Andy Williams show. So, but yeah, when you're born into it, I just thought everybody had a television studio with ice skaters and celebrities hanging around,
Right.
That was fun. I mean, my grandmother started the Children's Miracle Network around our kitchen table with tuna fish sandwiches. So we had the luncheon parties there, all catered, and all the sponsors and all the celebrities. I remember I got to jump on the trampoline with the skinny policeman from Dukes of Hazzard. It was so cool. Dave Thomas from Wendy's sitting over here with his daughter Wendy. We got Malcolm Jamal Warner over in the living room from the Cosby Show. Oh, there's Merlin Olsen from Little House on the Prairie. Oh, look, there's John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, they were all there. Solid Gold, Marilyn McCoo. It's crazy, like, who showed up at our house. But I didn't know any different.
Right.
It was just fun because they had big tents and they had food and famous faces. And I was like, well, I guess this is just how life is. You don't realize it in the moment, but the older that I've gotten, the more I've looked back and realized those were awesome days.
Yeah, because you get a mixed reaction from people who grew up like that. Like, Steve March Torme, of course. I had him on last week.
Yes.
Super famous family. He might have a different accounting of growing up famous. Obviously, the Jacksons, completely different. And
absolutely.
Faye Dunaway and her daughter. And, there are so many people where, they realize it because it's in their face constantly, and they're told, they're reading tabloids, obviously, and they're exposed to it. And then you get some kids who they're playing with other kids, and if they're treated normally,
Well, that's funny that you brought up the Jacksons, because my father told me about one of the first times they met the Jackson Five. They came up to the Osmonds and they said, man, our dad used to make us sit there and watch you guys on the Andy Williams shows. And he would say, now this is how you're supposed to perform, boys. Right? And they're looking at each other like, are you kidding? Like, we were watching you guys going, look, guys, now that's how we got to perform. And they inspired each other. Yeah. And then they became great friends. And they were stuck in hotels together, literally stuck because they couldn't go out. Yeah. Right? Because they're famous.
You're sequestered,
So they play games with each other in the hotels. My father talked about playing basketball with the Jackson Five. They were their friends. And then Donnie, you got to know Michael really well because they had so much in common. They were the lead singer of a five-brother band. Mm-hmm. They were the same age. Their mothers had the same birthdays. I mean, they had a lot in common. It was really cool. And then my Uncle Jimmy ends up producing Michael Jackson's 87 tour and his Bad tour in Japan.
Wow.
So the Jacksons and the Osmonds, it was like, we're like family, it's pretty cool. And so anyways, a lot of cool stories I could tell you, but anyways, we could be here all night.
Yeah. Well, tell us about Homeward Bound Heroes. That's something that really, really, I know that's really close to home for you, and it sounds really cool. Tell us about that.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that is one of many projects. And one of the projects that I did for the Wounded in Action Family Foundation, I was their national spokesperson. I even did a whole album, all produced, all to benefit wounded warriors and their families. And that's a big deal. I also wrote the theme song for the American Fallen Warrior Memorial Foundation called 21 Guns. And that is to benefit, and to remember the ultimate sacrifice given by our Gold Star families. And so, getting to work with the military, I've produced shows out in Walter Reed Hospital, just outside of it there, the music center. And just any way I can give back to our troops. You see, my father served. He left the Andy Williams shows even right before he made it big in pop music, and he went and served his nation during Vietnam time. Wow. And I grew up listening to those stories. He got that from his dad, my grandpa, who I'm named after, George. I'm the first grandchild to get that name. He served as an Army sergeant World War II. He was attacked by the Nazis. He was helping to build, airports and things over there in England, and got sent home because he had what do they call nowadays PTSD,
right,
or shell shock
back then. Yeah,
I just recently learned that if he had not been attacked, he would have been shipped out to go be part of that whole D-Day attack.
Really,
I'm so grateful that God protected him, and not only did he make it home alive, but he wasn't there that day. He would have probably loved to have been there because that's the kind of soldier he was.
Yeah,
the greatest generation. And then I got a great uncle who was a Pearl Harbor survivor. So I got a lot of family that have served. And so I thought, well, what can I do? What can I do to serve? And I'm not in the military, so I just try to do as much as I can, and through music, and especially country music, because that lends itself to patriotism. That's who I am. You see this flag right here. That's the flag that's in my video, Stars and Stripes. That was my 4th number one, and that really opened a lot of doors for me to be able to continue on. This plaque back here shows that I'm a honorary command sergeant major.
Wow.
And so I'm so honored to get that. There's all these coins you see up on this shelf right here, all from these different Gold Star families that I've had a chance to work with, and others that have served. And every time I get one of those coins, I just put it on my shelf with pride. That these are true heroes. These are people that, and I teach my children, what's a veteran? And I tell my children, a veteran is a man or a woman who at one point in their life wrote a blank check to the United States of America for the amount of up to and including their own life.
Wow.
They're willing to die for you. Isn't that powerful? So I got a 94-year-old neighbor next door. His name's Bob. He served in World War II and in Korea.
Wow.
And he came over and he said to my 8-year-old son, who was 7 at the time, he says, you boys probably don't even know what a veteran is. They're not teaching kids in class that nowadays, are they? And my 7-year-old son piped up, says, I know what a veteran is. It's someone that fights for our country, for our freedom and our liberty. And like, oh my gosh, preach on, Beckham, preach on. Oh, I was so proud, proud dad moment. But we got to teach our kids that freedom is not free.
Absolutely.
I love singing about it, but I love to have the opportunities to thank those who have put their lives on the line for me. I was doing a show in Hawaii one time, and there was this gentleman who was there in full uniform, and he didn't get the best seat in the house, and he was a little bit upset about his, the seat that he had, but he didn't know at the end of the show we're going to do a big military shout out and tribute with all of the armed forces medleys and their anthems. And as we was singing over hill, over dale, we're doing I went over to him and I shook his hand, because I had everyone that served in the Army during that song stand up, and I shook his hand, and he was so touched and so moved by this tribute that he reached over and he grabbed the combat patch on his arm and he ripped it off and he handed that to me and gave me a big hug.
Wow.
And then after the show was over, I went out to visit with him, and he said, this, I was so moved by the tribute and the fact that your great uncle's a Pearl Harbor survivor. He says, this patch, it looks like the arm of the Statue of Liberty. It was the patch that represented the very first all-Japanese platoon that served in World War II.
Wow.
That was powerful. And I carry that in my scriptures with me.
My grandfather served in World War II.
That guy had bullets flying over that patch.
Yeah.
In defense of my liberty. I don't take that lightly.
My grandfather served in World War II. I don't know if he saw that kind of heavy combat, but
yeah.
They didn't talk much when they came home.
They didn't, but Bob does. And boy, he shares some stories.
Yeah.
And man, you're like, are you kidding me? Oh, there was a time he was telling me like he was marching and he just had this overwhelming feeling come over him like they were in danger. He said, stop, don't move forward, and one or two soldiers were like, what do you mean stop? And it was just kind of a little defiant. And he's like, don't move. And whatever. These guys took another step and stepped right onto one of these bombs that had been placed there. And just, it was devastating. Two guys right then. There are other times, man, he was walking down the mountain. This was in Korea. He says, we were carrying a guy down the mountain and he just happened to trip just in time because there was a sniper that had fired. And had he not tripped, he says, it shot the butt of my gun off my back. I mean, that God works in awesome ways. Seriously. You're going to be here till you're supposed to be here. But I tell you, just to hear it from the guys that have walked in those boots, man, and to stand at the gravesides of Gold Star families, and to sit there and hear the stories of those that lie 6 feet beneath, to think about the sacrifice. I sat on the front porch of a lady named Sandy Terwisky, and 2 weeks before her son was alive. Wow. But he had given the ultimate sacrifice just 2 weeks before I got there. And her whole yard was just decked out. She went and pulled out the family photo book and just started showing me pictures of him with his buds. And I thought, wow, just how proud she was of her son, and she should be. And so I said, I've got to write a song for this lady. That's when I wrote 21 Guns and became the theme song of the American Fallen Warrior Memorial Foundation. I got a whole video for that. And this music is healing. It's powerful. when I went to the Indiana World War Museum. There's a big flag in there because he was from Indiana. And so I took a picture of that flag and sent it to his mom and just said, remembering your son.
Wow.
And it meant so much to her. She came to my show that night that I sat on her front porch, and she gave me a T-shirt, and the T-shirt had a little saying of something that he had said to his mom before he left. And it says, God only borrowed me to you. I really belong to him. Close quote. And then on the back it said, he gave all, Turwhiskey. Wow. That was his last name. So Alec, we miss you, brother, but we honor you today on this podcast.
God bless. Well, I got to lighten this up because, man, I'll go deep with this, and we'll be doing this for 4 hours. I mean, I could go with this.
People need to hear the stories. They need to know that they're walking and living and breathing because of complete strangers that they never knew. Right. I was carrying a big piece of the World Trade Center across the country from Florida to Utah, and we were in Indianapolis. And we stopped there, and I was coming out of that World War Museum, and this gentleman in the suit, he comes up to me, and he sees this big flag hanging down off this crane, the piece of the World Trade Center. My music's playing, and he goes, "What's all this about?" And I told him we're raising funds to build the largest memorial in honor of those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our country and our freedom, our liberty, from the Gulf War up to the present. And he started getting choked up. And he says, "Why does our country hate us so much?" And I thought, what? And then I saw he was emotional, and I said, "Sir, did you serve in Vietnam?" Because he says, "We didn't get a homecoming."
No, I have 2 uncles who served there.
Did you serve in Vietnam? He says, "Yes." And I said, "I don't know you and you don't know me, but all I know is you need a hug right now." And I'd say, "Get over here, sir. Welcome home." And 2 guys hugged it out in the park and cried. And I tell you, when I went in to record that album, which has not yet been released yet, this Homeward Bound Heroes album, I told my producer, Michael Curtis, I said, "We're missing a song. We're missing a thank you song." Because that word thank you means so much. We think they hear it enough. You can never thank them enough.
No.
So we wrote a song called Thank You the day before I went in to cut the songs for our album. And we added that song. It was inspired by that man in that park that gave me that hug. And,
that's inspiring.
Yeah. I don't know. He knows he's got a song written about him. But
well, speaking of inspiring, you're a very in-demand public speaker. Do you prepare for a speaking engagement any differently than you would, say, a musical performance? I mean, mentally.
Oh, really it's the same thing. I call it edutainment. Because you hope to educate and inspire. You give me a microphone and a crowd, I go crazy on you. And the thing is that this morning I opened up my refrigerator, the light went on, I did 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. I just love to inspire people to be their very best, to step into their greatness. I believe all of us are God's kids and that he loves every one of us equally. We have so much to be grateful for, so much to get up in the morning. And I think our world is lacking, not that they're lacking the content, because there's great content out there, but we don't see it enough on the mainstream. That's why I started my podcast called Achieving Awesomeness Now, which I do an episode once a week. And I just try to bring on good guests. I try to bring on, good topics, things that I call it your weekly podcast headquarters for inspiration, motivation, and all things awesome. You see the word awesome right here above my head? It's a reminder, be awesome, because you are awesome. But the thing is I tell people that I stood at the graveside of Noah Webster. He's buried right there in New Haven, Connecticut, right next to Eli Whitney. And as I stood there, I thought about all the words this man defined, but one word he didn't define is awesome. He didn't define success. We define that. We define what does it mean for me to be successful? What has to happen? Do I have to have trophies? Do I have to have a Grammy or a whatever you consider the pinnacle of success? Do I need all that? Is that really what success is? Because I don't have any of that stuff. Sure, I've had some number ones and things I worked hard for. But man, I was invited to be a local celebrity at a little pumpkin patch at a place called Corn Bellies. And it was right around Halloween time. My kids were younger. And I was invited to be the local celebrity to come tell ghost stories around the campfire.
Oh, wow.
And they were playing some country music. And we were out in the little cornfield maze. And right in the middle of that maze, because I was having some fun with my kids, all of a sudden they start playing my song. And my kids recognized that's Dad's song. And they stopped and they looked at me like I was the biggest rock star they'd ever seen.
Isn't that the best?
Woo!
When your own kids.
That's bigger than a naked gold statue.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Some guy named Oscar. I don't know who Oscar is, but I know who my kids are. And if they look at me like I'm some rock star, I mean, what else is there? What else is there?
If your kids adore you, they idolize you, that's all you need. I mean, you're the hero. Exactly.
Well, yeah. So make sure that when you define that word, that you look at what really counts, what really matters. Because I've talked to guys that have all these great platinum albums on the wall, and they said, "Yeah, we just kind of look at that and we call it just another plaque on the wall." That's what they call it. Because, I mean, the biggest check that one of my friends, who's you'd all recognize, he said the biggest check I ever got from a record label was $150,000.
Yeah.
And they sold millions. The record business is not to make the artist rich. No, they're away from their families, busting their tails, and they love what they do, and they're so good at it. But they missed out on a whole lot of what I just described. And so I'm grateful that I've had some good balance in my life. Grateful that I've had the successes that I've had. But the thing is that don't live in the past. We have in our car a thing that's called a rear view mirror. And as I look at that rear view mirror, it's good to look back. It's good to look back here on these shelves here and see the trophies and see the things that I've done. Yes, that's great. That's awesome. I got a 10 Outstanding Young American Award. I got 2 John C. Maxwell Leadership Awards. Awesome. That's great. But what's next? What are you going to do? I'm still here. That's awesome. That's in the past. We can look in our rearview mirror about that percentage, but then I got this big windshield. I got this view in front of me. That's where we need to keep looking. Percentage-wise, this much in the past, this much to the future. And if you keep things in perspective, you're not going to rest on your laurels. Because my dad always told me, son, you're only as good as your last show.
That's true. Well, at least for the public, that's all they remember.
Yes, I'm going to hit decline. That's my wife. She's calling. I'll let her know. She knows I'm doing your show.
All righty. Maybe dinner's ready and she figures, hey, you know what? You've had enough.
Yeah. She's awesome. And the secret to my success, I could not have done what I'm doing here, without her. So,
sure.
Anyways,
system, of course.
Well, good stuff. I'm just saying, I'm in the interview. There we go. See, this is live, folks. This is real.
That's how it works.
We get real here, Mr. Powers.
So you've got Achieving Awesomeness Now. You've got records. You've got speaking engagements. How do you find time to preside over Intune Productions? Oh,
you know what? I started Intune Productions before any of this happened.
Really?
I started back in 2002 because I wanted to be like my dad, Nathan Osmond Productions. See, I started Intune because it was my initial N and my tunes. But I started thinking it's deeper than that. You sing in tune. You got to be in tune to receive the inspiration to write the songs. And so there was more to it. And so it was more of not only a tax write-off type of a situation with an LLC that I set up, but then I started opening my doors as I got older to helping other artists. And so it's just a passion that I have. Intune Productions, we got our own production studio in Provo, Utah, Rock Canyon Studios. I partner with Gaynor Brunson there, the Brunson brothers, and we've got one of the largest green screens in Utah County. I've got one of the warmest microphones in the whole state. And Madonna's recorded on it. We've had Donnie Marie in there. It's just a great place to come and get creative. The lead singer, Chicago, he's been in our studio a bunch. And it's just so fun to see them come in and they just sound terrific. But we got a sound stage there, so we can do like televisions and broadcasts. We got Google Fiber. So most people are like, what's that? Exactly. It's only in like 2 or 3 cities in America. It is so fast, and our upload speed is 1,000. If you're a gamer, you're going, holy cow, mine's like 300. Exactly. Ours is 1,000.
Wow.
Come to our studio and check out Intune Productions. That's Ntune Productions.com. And you can learn more about what we do with that. But it's fun. On top of that, guess what? COVID shut down the entertainment business for a year. And it was tough, guys. I mean, I was booked on cruise ships and all sorts of things. But then, bam, nothing, right? So what am I going to do? Well, not only was I VP of marketing and sales for a great company, which I'm still working with, called Fluent Worlds. And we've got the #1 highest rated English learning app and Spanish app coming out soon. But I went back to school. I took that time of, isolation and whatnot, and took an online training of the mortgage world. And I'm so grateful I did, because as you know, Utah's on fire.
Yeah.
I was out on the road, actually, not only speaking and this and that, but I was doing some training. There's a company in Utah that hired me to go out and speak a lot. I did 277 live events in 201 cities in the year 2019. Wow. And then nothing. So I said, I got to get busy doing something. So I thought I could be home and do real estate and mortgage stuff. So I went and got my mortgage, took the class, the NMLS safe test, and I passed it my first try. And only 51% of people actually pass it. Wow. Their first try, and fewer pass it the second time. So I was just thrilled, and that's been going great. I started OsmondHomeLoans.com, working as part of the elite team at Security Home Mortgage. And man, I've just been cranking. It's been awesome. And so, you got to be willing to pivot. And we learned that when we were doing our choreography. I got to work with Janet Jackson's choreographer, and he taught us about, move here and move left and sharp.
Just sharp,
he
exactly,
was
the angles, yeah.
All of the Rhythm Nation stuff. He's the guy who was doing like the stool thing with a hat, and he came in, and that's what I learned with choreography, is that you got to be light on your feet. You got to be agile. And when it comes to business, you got to be able to reinvent yourself, recreate yourself. Look at my Uncle Donnie. First, he's, Donnie Osmond, but now he went for 6 years doing musicals, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. He's in movies. He's the Masked Singer. He's voiceovers for Disney characters. He's constantly recreating himself. He's the game show host. You look at Marie with her Dancing with the Stars and selling dolls and gyms and Nutrisystem and on the talk. They've done so many. I've had so many great mentors that it's okay to do something new.
Right.
It's okay to branch out and to leverage your skill sets to be able to provide for your family.
Or you get typecast.
If you apply yourself, you can do anything.
That's true. Now, you've got a wife and 4 beautiful young boys, 4 sons.
Yeah. I have been so blessed. I married a girl from Florida who was cast as Snow White at Disney World. So I tell everybody I married Snow White, and we've got 4 dwarfs, all boys. And my oldest is, he'll be 18 in October. I can't believe that I'll have a young adult in the house.
Wow.
But he's 17 now. I got a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So we are busy. And, especially being a parent during COVID, it's been kind of a very interesting time for our family. It can affect us, being isolated from each other.
Yeah.
Zoom only goes so far, and to go to the type of lifestyle like I was just talking about, never being home,
right?
Because I'm always on the road, and then all of a sudden, boom, nothing. It really shook me up, and I've watched my children. Several of my children have had counseling. I think your children probably need counseling if they haven't had it, because we've gone through this together. I was driving around and started feeling like I was going to pass out. And I was like, what's happening? This is weird. I've never passed out in my life, especially while I'm driving. That would be really bad.
That would be scary, yeah.
So I pulled over to the side of the road, and I told my brother David I was heading up to this TV show, and we were both going to be on. I said, I don't know what's happening. Something's happening. And I'm just sitting on the side of the road trying to figure it out. Just took deep breaths, tried to calm myself down. For some reason, I was like, just kind of panicky a little bit. So I got to the show, and I felt this like every day throughout that week. This is all during COVID, and I started doing some filming, and I started feeling I did a Facebook Live, and it came at me just out of nowhere, this feeling I was going to pass out, and I got nervous, and I just asked people to pray for me, and I didn't know why, because I didn't know what was happening. So finally I go to film this YouTube video, and my wife was working, and I called my mother. I said, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I might pass out. Would you please come here and just be here in case that happens? Wow. And so she did. And afterwards, of course, as a mother, she insisted we go to the doctor. I went to see the doctor. My blood pressure was fine. My sugar levels were fine. Everything checked out. And they said, we can't prove this, but we think with all that you've been through with the changes with COVID and everything else, and this, everything shutting down, that your serotonin levels could be low. That's created in the gut. All right. That's hormonal. That's like, and it affects happiness. It affects. I mean, they think I think you might be having some panic attacks. And I thought, no, Mr. Achieving Awesomeness now? No, I'm Mr. Happy. They call me Guy Smiley. Come on. Anyways, it kept happening. And I was stubborn. I didn't go get the medicine like they asked. And, because I'm stubborn, but I was at my brother's house that very same week and it started kicking in again. My mother's like, did you go get that medicine I told you about? I said, no. She says, you go right now. I'll take care of your kids. I'll get them home, blah, blah, blah. So I'm a spiritual man. I'm a religious man. And I started praying as I walked to my car to get in because I didn't think it was going to be very safe for me to be driving at that moment.
Right.
Because I knew how I was feeling. And so I started praying and I said, Heavenly Father, please protect me. I don't know if I'm supposed to be driving right now, but I pray that you'll watch over me, help me to get to where I need to be safely. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. I'm now at a stop sign. I go to push the gas. My car won't move. What do you mean it won't move? I was just driving. I got to a stop sign. I say amen, and my car won't move. I put it in reverse. It won't back up. I literally got like frozen right there. Wow. In my car, and then I really lost it. I just started bawling. I'm like, I'm getting immediate answers to prayer. Some unseen force is stopping me from moving anywhere. And then it stopped me for about probably 30, 40 seconds. And then I was able to continue, but it was in limp mode. It cost me about $1,000, but it probably saved my life.
Absolutely.
And my wife, she went and got the medicine. I drove straight to the car lot because I knew we were going to have our car checked out. But that next day I called my Uncle Donnie and I said, Donnie, here's what's happening. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I started explaining how I was feeling. And after I did, he just laughed. And he said, welcome to the club, buddy. I said, what do you mean? He said, I wrote a whole book about this stuff. It's called Life is Just What You Make It. Dude, I've struggled with panic attacks for years. And he says, you want to come to my house and talk about it? And I did. And he just told me, Nathan, every one of us needs a safe person. I'm yours.
Wow.
And he and I bonded.
That's
and I've been great ever since. There's been a few little things, but he's taught me a lot that he spent years and decades and thousands of dollars of therapy learning. And I'm so grateful for what he taught me because, every one of us is dealing with something in life.
Sure.
And my father's got MS, it doesn't have him. That's been his slogan from day one. I might have MS, but MS does not have me. And talk about a mentor. But the thing is that we don't just go through life, we grow through it. And so I'm so grateful. My wife told me I should start a podcast because I did. And I said on my very first episode, I said, if I only get an audience of 4 and those 4 are my sons, then it was worth recording because I want to leave it all here. I want to leave it all here for future generations to learn from my mistakes or from my successes. And it's not about me. It's about empowering others. And that's why it's called Achieving Awesomeness Now. And I love doing it. It's fun. It's become like my hobby. It's become my therapy. I've talked to therapists. I've talked to doctors. I've talked to Les Brown and Andy Andrews and these great, great minds of our time. And they become my friends, but it's like I'm getting a free session with them because they're on my show. And not only that do I get to benefit from it, but all my listeners do as well. So I'm going to keep doing it till I get it right.
That's amazing. You have 4 boys. I've got a daughter and 5 nieces. You must be ingesting vitamin Y, and I'm taking vitamin X.
I tell you, it's the Utah water, man. There's 57 grandkids on the Osmond side. Only 17 are girls, and some of them were adopted. And so we literally have to adopt to get girls in our family. Our last name's never going away.
I got plenty on my side. They're going to wind up mixing
God has
parties.
his way of balancing things out, for sure. I'm glad someone's having girls.
Oh, they are something else, boy. They're a blessing from God, but boy, do they humble you.
Oh, dude, there's a reason you don't have any hair left.
Exactly. And this is all turning into like, Santa Claus white over here.
Is that? Oh, look, I got some of that too.
Yeah.
Right there. You see it? I call that wisdom.
Oh, is that what it is?
Okay. You got some wisdom in your beard.
I'm gonna rebrand it to wisdom. Nathan,
there you go.
I got a couple more minutes here. I got some email from some people. Would you mind answering some questions from some listeners?
You bet.
All right. Now, these are in no specific order, so whatever they are, they're unfiltered, and they could be interesting.
I love it.
I have ER in Morgantown, West Virginia. God's
Nice.
country.
Yeah.
ER doesn't say whether it's a guy or girl, wants to know what your favorite hobby is.
Favorite hobby. Oh,
You're not working now. You're just chilling with the kids, or you're doing
just
whatever.
chilling. I mean, well, obviously music is my great obsession. So playing the piano is a way that I really calm my nerves, which is interesting because my piano teacher gave me an ulcer when I was 9. And so my parents, they took me to the doctor. I had lessons at 6 a.m. I remember going in and I started playing. I said, I'm going to throw up. She's like, not on my piano, you're not. Boom, She runs to get me some paper bag, and before she could get back, I was outside in her front bushes just there. And they put me on my Lantin 2 and prescribed medications for ulcers when I was 9.
Oh my God.
My parents said, we don't want a concert pianist. We just want you to appreciate music. I said, well, can I quit her? And I did, and then I played for all the right reasons.
Wow.
That's a good message to take home from this interview. Play for all the right reasons. Now what caused me so much stress is what takes it away. I also love art. I love movies. I love going to see a good flick. I've downloaded so many movies in my collection, but I love being able to explore. Like when I was on the road, everywhere I went, I didn't sit around in a hotel room. I got out and I went exploring, especially historic battlegrounds and historic locations where things took place. I'm a big history buff, and I love to see where history took place. I love to touch it with my hands and just wow, I stood on top, a little round top there at Gettysburg. I knelt on the ground at 6:30 in the morning as the sun came up, looking over Death Valley, the Valley of Death. Look, there's Devil's Den. Look, this is where Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain stood. And I guess I'm kind of a geek that way, but I just love to be there and explore. So that's another hobby.
That's amazing. I've got Grace in Sharon Hill. That's right outside of Philly in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And Grace says, I understand that the Osmond family was close to the Jackson 5, and we discussed that. Did you ever get to hang out with Michael or any other brothers or sisters?
I wish I could say yes. The only sister that I got to meet was LaToya. And the reason is we got to share the same stage with her up in Edmonton, Alberta. And it was so fun to get to meet her. And her people's like, yeah, she requires X amount of roses for her shows. And the venue's like, well, you're not going to go buy roses. I'm like, look, we got plenty of roses from the girls, from our shows. Why don't we just give all the roses to LaToya Jackson, let her use them in the show? And so she did. And it was funny. It's funny to get to meet her. That's the only Jackson I got to meet. But I did work with Janet's choreographer.
Right.
And that was pretty cool. And Terry Bixler was his name. And he came in and he was supposed to choreograph us for our music video. And we had actually flown over a choreographer to choreograph this number because we had to perform it for the Big Hits, Smash Hits award show in England. And they had everybody, all the who's who of the 90s were on the stage with us. So he flies over, and for whatever reason, Customs did not let him through, and they flew him back to Utah. So I was forced to choreograph this number. And we did it. It went over great. And then Terry Bixler comes to Utah to choreograph it before we shoot our music video. Well, he says, well, let me see what you already got because you already choreographed it. Let me see what you did. So we got to show him all the stuff that I came up with. And he's like, why do you need me? He said, dude, that was awesome. So he made me feel like $1 million as a 15-year-old, to be able to hear that from him. But he choreographed the opening and the breakdown of that song, but the rest of it he kept. That's the stuff that I came up with. So it was really cool getting to work with such a professional as Terry Bixler. But the Jackson family are awesome. When Michael did pass, I actually wrote to Donnie, and I said, Donnie, I looked up TMZ, and they were the first ones to announce that he had passed. Mm-hmm. I said, Michael Jackson just died. And he texts back real fast. He said, no, he's having heart complications. He's in an ambulance or whatever. I said, TMZ just announced that he died.
Wow.
And he writes back, oofda. I don't know what that means, but you could probably Google it.
That's a northern, that's like North Dakota,
North Dakota, yeah. I didn't know what the word meant, but a few minutes go by and he writes back and he goes, it's been confirmed.
Oof. Wow.
He called his mother. So that's how close Donnie was to Michael. In fact, he sat in his car and he told Donnie, he said, this is like right after the Donnie Marie shows were canceled and stuff, and he's like a has-been at age, 21 maybe.
Right.
And Michael Jackson saying, Donnie, your name is Poison. What do you mean? He says, it's like the Brady Bunch. Nobody wants to let you grow up. We got to get you into some controversy or something like that. Anyways, he was having like this like really hard time, Donnie was, and then he says, hey, would you like to hear some of my new tunes? And he's sitting in his red sports car, Michael and Donnie, and he popped in some of the best tunes you've ever heard. They're now all number one hits.
Thriller demos or something.
We've heard of before.
My God.
And so Donnie got to have a personal,
wow.
playlist by Michael himself in his sports car. So that's a really cool Jackson story right there.
You're telling me. I got time for like one or two more of these. Let's see if I can get a short one here. Stacy in Georgia wants to know what your favorite vacation destination is.
Holy cow. I just got back from Maui. That was awesome. My wife and I celebrated 19 years of marriage over there.
Oh, congrats.
I love Hawaii. I love the islands. I love going on cruise ships. Heck, and I love like New Zealand and Australia. If you've never been to those places, you got to go.
It's on my list.
But for vacation-wise, I love either somewhere tropical like Hawaii or New Zealand or Australia, or you see I got some Disney character friends right here on screen. I'm a huge Disney fan, so, theme parks. I love theme parks. I love roller coasters. I don't like the foot traffic too much, but it's nice when you get those fast passes and get on there with your kids and just create memories. I remember, we were on the Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat tour for 2 years, and we had 1 week off, so we all went to Orlando as a family, and every one of us rented one of those like electronic scooter, like for the handicaps. And we had a whole train of us Osmonds going there. It was like a ride in and of itself is to get to the ride, So it was great. My father is handicapped, so that's why we all rented him. So we go his pace. And then, of course, he got us on the rides that fast. He said, you hang with your father. I'll get you on first. And so it was really fun. We all had a great time as a family. But I love Disneyland, Disney World. Anything Disney, or something islandy.
Can you imagine being Joe Smith from like Kansas and all of a sudden here's a train of Osmonds going by and you're like, is this part of the show? Is this part of the park?
Well, I took my wife there on our honeymoon and Donnie surprised me with a Disney tour guide. And so everywhere we went, she was getting us fast passes to get on the next one and knew how to work the system. And it was so cool. We actually got walking in there and this tour guide introduced me to this guy who was like to the T Disney. And says, welcome you guys to Disney World. I was like super happy. And I said, yeah, we're on our honeymoon. You're on your honeymoon. How would you like to be our grand marshals in our parade today? I was like, are you kidding me? So we got to sit in Walt Disney's car and Nathan and Sarah Osmond from Fairview, Utah on their honeymoon, we're waving as strangers as we drive down Main Street. I was like, honey, don't get used to this. I don't even have a job.
Well, this is
starting our lives out.
This is a great lead into what is probably our last email. Melissa, no location listed. That's okay. Is there anything you'd go back and change at any point in your life? It doesn't sound like it, but it's all yours.
That's a good question because I always tell people live without regrets. And I think every one of us will have some regret somewhere in life. I always try to treat people right, and that you'll never regret because you never know who you're talking to. We don't know what others are going through. I'm grateful for all the experiences that I had. I think if I could go back, perhaps I would have taken a few more weeks off the road and spent it with the ones that matter most.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't take back. That's the thing. I always tell people that on my podcast. I said, time is your greatest commodity because you can always get another Apple computer or another whatever or trophy. You can always get more stuff, but you can't get time back no matter how wealthy you are.
That's what my dad taught me.
You can't get health back, really, once you've thrown it away. But time is so powerful. Not even Bill Gates could buy more time.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So And that's the thing, is that when you give of your time, you truly give of yourself. So when somebody gives me of their time, I'm grateful for that, because they've truly given of themselves. And so you can never get that time back. I hope that after listening to this interview, you're not saying, well, we'll never get this time back. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know I have. And I hope that you will definitely keep listening to Ray Powers here, man. You're the man. Thanks for having me on. And I hope that some of your fans will come over and listen to my podcast too. And just very exciting to meet you. So thank you for having me on the show, brother.
Well, this is time well spent, trust me, and we could do another hour and it would have flown by. Tell them where to get in touch with you. Where do we get
Absolutely.
the podcast? Give us
You can go to nathanosmond.com. That's my official website. If you click on podcast, you listen to my podcast. I just added a store yesterday. Actually, today. We just got the link up today. So it's brand new. If you want to check out some of our merch, it's just click on store right there on Nathan Osmond, or shop.nathanosmond.com. And hope you guys will come and check out where I'm going to be performing. Check out OsmondHomeLoans.com if I can help you in the mortgage world. You know, we've got all sorts of things happening. If we can help you with your next production, if you need a video or something shot, come see Ntune Productions. That's Ntune Productions.com. I've got a million websites. But make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all the social medias. Just look up Nathan Osmond or Osmond Home Loans.
Nathan, thanks so much, man. This has been great.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, God bless, man.
You too.
The Ray Powers Hour.